Hey YouTube, back at you. I thought I'd talk for a few minutes, try to keep this video kind of short. Today marks the 1 year anniversary actually of the Uvalde shooting, so just offering words of encouragement and peace to anyone that's been a victim of gun violence or any other kind of violent event. Certainly we live in a cold world and very challenging times, and so I just thought I would just offer some words of encouragement to anyone that's been going through, political, religious affiliations aside. I just pray that one day we wise up as a nation and put in place some realistic gun control measures. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think an ordinary citizen like myself should have these high-powered weapons that can have magazines that can fire 30, 40, 50, 60 rounds of high-powered bullets without having to reload their gun. I don't need that. It's a jungle out there, but I don't need that. Or ordinary citizens, I don't think, really need those kinds of provisions. I think if we call it what it was, weapons of mass destruction, which is what it is, a gun that can fire that many bullets, almost just spray them out almost immediately. You're looking to create mass casualties, but that's just me. So, cheers. It is Wednesday, May 24th. Not sure when I'm going to get to upload this video. It's about 9:45 at night. I just got home about an hour ago. Had a good day today. Last couple of days, as I shared in previous videos, I was laid off from my job. So one of the things that I've done is just been looking for music here lately, and so I made a few stops over the last couple of days and thought I'd share some of the stuff that I found. One of the things that I found was that records, and maybe it's just me, but the cost of records during this pandemic has just skyrocketed. I used to could find sometimes at thrift stores and resale shops, you could find records for a few dollars each and pretty decent condition, decent records. But that's hard to find now, at least where I am here in Northwest Indiana. But I did look up over these last couple of days, as I said, and I did find some. My intentions were to create a video. I'd actually pulled some records once to just show some of my favorite records that I've gotten just really dirt cheap over the years. And maybe I'll go pull those records again and do that. But I have an example of that actually from my record trips just in the last couple of days. So yesterday, Tuesday, I went to a Goodwill store in Lake Station, Indiana. I very rarely find records there. Their records at that Goodwill are, I want to say like 29 cents each. And I very rarely find anything decent there. I think the last time I was there a couple of months ago, I found, I think, a Muddy Waters album, Electric Mud, with no cover, but the record was in pretty good shape. And I think that was, and I don't think I've gotten a record from there before then, since last year sometime. But yesterday I was there, and I actually found 10 records. And so these records were each 29 cents. I was pleasantly surprised. So let's get to them. The first one, this is going to be an upgrade to my copy. The Emotions, Rejoice. This album is from, I want to say, 76 or 7. And, of course, it includes The Best of My Love, Don't Ask My Neighbor. Those were probably top 10 hits. The feeling is that was a song that was sampled, I think, by a lot of rappers, but it's a good song. Blessed is also a good song on this album, and so it actually includes the original insert as well, which I didn't have in my copy. So I was glad to get this for 29 cents. The vinyl itself it looks really good. There's some marks on there, but it looks really good, and I'm pretty confident that it's going to play good as well. The second record is another upgrade from my copy. Michael McDonald, If That's What It Takes. This is a early 80s album. I want to say 81, 82. And of course, it includes his now classic, I Keep Forgetting, which is a great song. He's also got, on this record, I Gotta Try and I Can't Let Go Now. Those are two songs that I like as well on this album. But again, this is an upgraded copy for me. This looks clean, and it's got the original insert. I have this insert on the copy that I have, but it's all torn up, and it's not in that great of shape. So this one, again, 29 cent upgraded copy. This is an album by a group called Take Six. They were a a cappella gospel group in the early 90s on the Reprise label. I'm not familiar with this particular album. One of their biggest hits, the one that I know of the most, and I have on the 45, is they took Ambrosia's song "Biggest Part of Me" and turned that into a gospel a cappella song. This album on the Reprise label, I'm not familiar with any of these songs besides Spread Love on side one. I have heard of that song. I believe that was a hit for them, but I don't know any of these other songs. I didn't have this album, and for 29 cents, I was glad to get it. Here's another one. It's Cannonball Adderley. I'm not sure what this is. It's an album from 1977 on a label called DORRE, or maybe that's a DOBRE. I'm not sure. It's a fancy script. And I don't know what this is. I'll eventually will look this up online to see what this album is about. I don't think this is one of his original albums, but it includes Cannonball Adderley on alto sax, his brother Nat Adderley on cornet, Mike Wolf on keyboards, Rory McCurdy on percussion, and Walter Booker on bass. I've never heard of those last three, but I saw that there is a short version of Mercy, 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 but they just call it Mercy, Mercy on this one. So I'm not sure what this is about, but for 29 cents, I will absolutely look into it further on the turntable. The next record here is Clarence Carter, the great blind musician. Patches, some of his earlier stuff, that was good. He was married, I think, at one time to Candy Staten, an R&B singer. This album is on a label called Venture from 1980. I'm not very familiar with this label other than there was a group called Sherry, Cheri. It was two women. And I have a couple of 12-inch singles by them. They have one, Murphy's Law, and there's another one. Those are the only two records I have on this label. I don't know anything else about this label. So 1980 would have been, I think Clarence Carter left Atlantic Records. I thought it was more like 76, 77, but I'm not 100% sure. I'm not familiar with any of the records on here, any of the songs that's on here. I can tell you just from some of the titles, it's a disco-y kind of album, and I kind of gleaned that just because Sherry, the group, they were a disco group. And the first song on side A is called Jimmy's Disco. So I'm sure this is him trying to do disco music, maybe to try to stay relevant, but I don't know. It should be an interesting listen, but again, it's 29 cents. Bessie Smith Blues. This one, the down here is all messed up, and it's a gatefold, but it's messed up down here. Bessie Smith, and this is on the Columbia label. I don't know much about Bessie Smith's music. I know she was a very beloved blues artist. I believe she did a lot of her work in the 30s, 40s. I'm not 100% sure. I don't have any of her music. I'm not familiar with any of her music. But situations like this is a good time to become, I think, familiar with artists that maybe you aren't. And for 29 cents and a double album, I will absolutely give this a listen. And hopefully I can find something that I can appreciate in there. This is a compilation album called Rhythm and Blues, the best vocal groups. It's on the Guest Star label. I've had records on this label before. It was like a reissue label, like a cheap reissue label. I had some Billie Holiday stuff on there. Wasn't crazy about the sound quality on it, but it's 29 cents. I'll try. It's got artists like the Penguins, Hey Senorita, the Medallions, Buick 59, the Meadowlarks, Heaven and Paradise, the Platters, Only You. And so those are just some of the songs on here. And, again, it's 29 cents. It may be worth it. It may not be. I'll definitely try. Here's some a little more jazz. Arthur Prysock with Count Basie on the Verve label. What made this stand out to me when I picked it up, it's a Creed Taylor production, and it was recorded on December 12th and 13th of 1965 on this Verve label. It's in the shrink. Looks good. I'm not a huge Arthur Prysock fan. I do like a little bit of his stuff, but I am a big Count Basie fan. And I will absolutely give this a shot, especially for 29 cents. Then here's a Arthur Prysock solo album here. It's called The Best of Arthur Prysock on the Verve label. And I'm sorry for those of you who are not familiar. Arthur Prysock, it just has this really rich, deep crooner of a voice. And he was very popular with standards and things like that. And so this is his greatest hits. I think this was probably released sometime in the mid-60s, I would guess. But I'm not 100% sure. But for 29 cents, I will absolutely try it. This is one of those things that can happen when you're buying records at a thrift store. So on the cover, it tells me that this is Randy Crawford, Nightline, a 12-inch single. And I do like Randy Crawford, a jazz singer. It's just a 12-inch single. And I always check them when I'm in the store. But what's in here is a Richard Pryor meets Richard and Willie and the SLA on the Laugh label. So I will try that. I do like comedy records. Excuse me, I apologize. Cheers. I do like comedy records. So I'm going to try. All right, so that was yesterday from, the Goodwill. Today, I went by a shop. It's weird. It's called Mama's Resale Shop. In the back, they sell used tires and do tire repair and light car repair. They fix lawnmowers, things like that. And then in the front, it's a resale shop, small little resale shop in a section called Black Oak and Gary. And I've been here before. I haven't been there in a while. I did, and the last few times I've been there, they didn't have any vinyl. They only had CDs. And so I would occasionally buy CDs from there. They have them for $1, and they're usually something pretty decent that I can look. And I did get some CDs today. I did get some CDs at Goodwill yesterday, but I'm not going to show those. And so I didn't have high hopes for vinyl, but I decided to go there because I had the time today, and I was going to go pick up some lunch at a restaurant that was nearby. So I said, well, let me go at least look. And would you know, they had some records and some good stuff. And so I'll go over these. These records were each $2 each. The last time I was there, I think her records were $1. But still, good records. I don't mind paying $2, absolutely. And so the first one I got is from the band The Brooklyn Bridge. This is called The Second Brooklyn Bridge. This was a follow-up to their album with What's the Worst That Could Happen. And I'm not familiar with this particular album, but for $2 on that classic Buddha label, for $2, I am going to take a listen to the Second Brooklyn Bridge album. The next record, I got some of them mixed up here. That one goes there. This next record is by a band called The City on the old label ODE, and it's actually sealed. I have another album by the band The City that I bought from a store in Griffith that I talked about in my last video. And so this is another one. I don't know anything about that band, and I didn't include this group's record that I got in the last video. But this one, it looks interesting. This looks like maybe some progressive rock or folksy rock or something like this. I'm not 100% sure. It's on the old label. And I do see that Carole King does play keyboard on here and does some vocals. And so I'm interested to listen. Again, it's sealed, $2. I'll try it. The Bee Gees, Horizontal. I don't have this album. This is from their early period, on the Atco label. And so World, Massachusetts was a hit for them on this record. I think Horizontal was too. But I've never had this album before. And so for $2, I will listen. This was another blind buy, a band that I'm not familiar with. It's called The Illusion, and the album is called Together as a Way of Life. I'm not exactly sure what, and some of these musicians look like they could be rock, they could be playing rock music. Hard to tell. When I looked at the producers and the musicians on this record, nothing really stood out to me that I recognize, nor do I recognize any of the names of the members of this band. It's on the Steed label. The record's in really good shape. And so I'm just curious about this one. It was $2. If you're familiar with this record or the other one from The City that I've mentioned before, I have an opportunity to listen to it. I'd love to see your comments down in the comments section. So the next one is Jimmy Ruffin sings Top 10 on the Soul label. This includes, this was from 1968. It includes What Becomes of the Brokenhearted, I Passed This Way Before, Since I Lost You was a big hit for him. And so very glad to get this on the Soul label. The record's in great shape. It's an album I don't have, and I will gladly add. And this is the last one. This is an upgrade copy for me. Steve Miller Band, Fly Like an Eagle. I have this, and the copy I have of this one, I probably had like 30 years, and it's seen better days. The record itself was decent, but it's just gotten trashed over the years, and the cover was just horrible looking. But this one, the record looks much better. Hard to see. but the record looks much better on that Capitol label. And for $2, I was glad to upgrade my copy. Just a few more records to show. So, also earlier today, I went by a Goodwill store that I used to go to in Gary that used to sell records for 30 cents, and on the weekends their records were 15 cents. And it's been a few years since that has occurred, but I would go in there some weeks and I would find 30, 40 records. And I have to tell in another video, I have to tell a story of the first time I went in there, and I'll show some of the records that I've gotten over the years. But so the original location closed and they built a brand new facility with a job training center about a mile down the road. And so they no longer just have the set prices. It's what's called a Goodwill outlet store. But now they just charge by the pound, and I think it's $1.40 a pound. And so I was there. I found 2 records and 2 CDs. I only brought one of the records to show, and it was $2. So you may as well say like 50 cents each. And this was the soundtrack to the movie Ghostbusters. I realized today that I've never had this soundtrack. When I first started collecting records, and used records, when I realized there was such thing as used records in the early 90s, one of the first ones I found was Ray Parker Jr. an album called Chartbusters. And it was, I guess, Arist's way of just releasing a Ray Parker Jr. only album with Ghostbusters, which was new, and then it had some of his greatest hits. So that was the one that I had. I don't believe I've ever had the actual Ghostbusters soundtrack before. So in theory, around 50 cents, that was okay. And so the next place that I went today, it's this resale shop that I just discovered. This is the second time going there. And these people, I don't know if somebody's smoking crack in the back. Shouldn't make fun of this stuff. But I went there for the first time. So this is a place that they have everything from used furniture and sinks and just odds and ends dishes and knickknacks for your mantle. And they have records. And so the first time I went there, which was about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and maybe in another video I'll show some of the records I bought then. I didn't think to pull them now, but I saw some records. Some had price tags on them that were just ridiculous, and I just thinking, okay, maybe this is who they got it from, and these are clearly $1, $2, $3 records. And some were marked with prices, and some were not. And so I picked out some, and what they were trying to get was, so if the record didn't have a price, it was $5. And some of these records that they were trying to get $5 for was just ridiculous. And some records were, I'll give you an example. There's an album by Aretha Franklin. It's called like Almighty Fire or something. It was one of her last albums on Atlantic. It was an absolute disaster. Some say that was the reason, I think, why she left Atlantic. They had a $55 price tag on that record, and it didn't even look like it was in that great of shape. I saw a Nancy Wilson album. I don't even remember what it was. I was laughing so hard. They had an $85 price tag on there. Today I saw, as much as I love George Benson's Breezin' album, they had a $35 price tag on that. And so when I was there the first time, I got a couple of records that I said, because it was half price that day. So the $5 records were $2.50. And some of those records I was willing to pay $2.50 for. So on the way out, the person that was in charge, I saw her, and I said, if you ever want to realistically sell some of your records, let me know, and I might be interested in them. And so I explained to her that her prices were just utterly laughable. And so she said, well, just pick out some records and maybe we can make a deal. And so we did. And maybe on a future video, I'll show some of those records. And I ended up making a deal, and I got a few records then. But I told her, I said, I'll come back again. And this is probably going to be my last trip there, because some of these records, the prices that they have on this stuff is just utterly ridiculous. But I'll show you what I got there. I got 3 records there today. This one was $5. Yeah, $5. Uh, All Directions, The Temptations. Now, this is, I believe, an original press on the Gordy label. The record is pretty good shape. It's in the shrink wrap. Of course, the big hit on this was Papa Was a Rolling Stone, but Funky Music, Show Enough, Turns Me On did pretty well. Mother Nature, they have a version of Do Your Thing by Isaac Hayes, and they have a version of The First Time Ever I Saw Your Face on here. But, and of course the Funk Brothers are playing on here. And so it's a good album, and okay, I didn't have a problem paying $5 for this record. Yeah, I get it. And so they had some records that didn't have covers to them. And they wanted $5 for records with no covers. And I said no. But I got two of them. One, Spark of Love, Lenny Williams. This has, of course, because I love her on there. I have this album, but I can't find it. And Because I Love You is just one of those songs. I think they gave it to me. She ended up giving it to me for $2.50, and this record's not in that great a condition. I don't know. Maybe I just felt bad, so I paid $15 for this Temptations record. Not smart, but then I got something on Blue Note, the Horace Silver Quintet Sextet, the Jody Grind. This needs to be cleaned up, but I think this can be cleaned up, and this might be something decent. And you know, stuff on Blue Note is just ridiculously priced today. But as I said, that's probably my last time going back there. And I told her on the way out, your prices are just pitiful. I'm sorry, but you know, it is what it is. But anyway, so I'm sorry. I wanted this video to be to be short. We're pushing a half an hour. I apologize. I'll get better at this over time. Cheers. I hope everyone has a blessed and wonderful day. Thank you so much for your time and attention. May God bless and keep you all. Have a blessed and wonderful day.